With the new year, new comics projects are dropping hot and heavy on Kickstarter, as self-publishers and creators who set out the 2024 holidays have lots of fresh stories to bring us. How much will the project volume increase from the low of 96 in the last week of last year? How much of that volume will be consumed by porn cover mills, empty campaigns, and beginner comics that aren't quite ready for prime time? Let's go through the week of January 6th through the 12th and find out. Along the way, we'll filter out the best real comics available and ensure you know your options and can make good backing decisions without missing the projects that matter most. Some familiar trends continued Monday, even as there emerges an increase in launch volume within the Kickstarter comics category. Again, we're seeing projects that are not comics launched in the category, including Pharaoh's American Safari, Idaho, Mr. Potato Pimp. How creative. Scott Pharaoh puts out a series of publications that's comprised completely of non-sequential porn art, so these are pen-ups or art pieces, whatever you want to call them, featuring IP from other people or other entities, mostly Marvel and DC. Definitely not a comic. The other one is Shade Draw's new prints and variant edition books, which includes, as it says, prints and new covers, but not real comics. Not new comics anyway. Again, there's a fair proportion of new launches by new or novice creators who are early on in their comic crafting efforts, but not yet where their abilities are such that the work can be recommended. Got 3 of those from Monday. VK Chapter 1, Shadows of Vengeance. A couple of superhero books, The Peacekeepers issues number 1 and 2, and Fat Man Bites. Just one not safe for work title, which is kind of a surprise based on how things have been going for the past several weeks. This one is called The Naked Spy number 1 through 4, which describes itself as a not safe for work spy thriller comic. It featured more story info and actual sequential art than most recent not safe for work projects, but it doesn't quite make the cut to comic I like status. It's just not one I can recommend at this point. A few of the launches that came close but didn't quite achieve formal recommendation status, and these are mostly based on the interior art samples that were provided. There's one called Worthy Chaos Devastation, Supernatural Western Comic Issue 1. Slice of Life, The Cheerleader Gets the Girl, which included a lot of copy and pasted faces and very little backgrounds throughout. Otherwise, probably a comic I would recommend, but the weird reuse of faces, panel to panel to panel, and just changing positioning of eyes and mouth expressions just seemed lazy. And War Angels issue 12 was the other one. So that did leave 2 projects launched on Monday that achieved comic I like status. One I was really excited about once I saw it. It's just something different after a really low variety of projects in December. This one's called Postage Due 1 by Michael Hoffert Jr. Describes itself as a gripping workaday thriller set in the nightmare of modern America. And the cover image is of a postal truck in flames. Very gripping, striking image. Postage Due 1 has an initial funding goal of $1,800. It ends on February 5th with an estimated delivery date of June. It doesn't really specify the number of pages, which is a shortcoming of the Kickstarter page, but I can overlook it based on the concept. The lowest digital tier price is $5. The lowest print tier price is $10, so both very reasonable within the Kickstarter economy. Like I said, I love the cover, very gripping cover art and design. Really captivating black and white interior art and composition, just really nice to look at. Has an edge to it that goes along with the subject matter. And this is a fascinating story concept that's really different than much of what we're seeing right now. I liked it so much I backed it. And I think you should take a chance and back it too. Next up is Kate Carter Adventures numbers 1 through 5 by Rob Jones, a fellow Substacker. The initial funding goal is $1,000 with an end date of February 5th, estimated delivery month of April. This one also doesn't specify the number of pages. We need to get better about that. Just everybody in general. I'm seeing a lot of that. It's just basic information that people need to know in order to make an informed decision on whether to back something or not. How big is the book? How much story am I getting? The lowest digital tier price for Kate Carter is $5. The lowest print tier price is $10. Again, very reasonable. Solid interior art, colors, and composition. This is a fun action-adventure tale featuring a time-traveling Bonnie and Clyde as the villain, so that alone is pretty interesting. There are catch-up rewards tiers available for the previous issues if you want more than just the 5th issue. There's some meat here on the bone for these last couple of titles, and I think we're trending in the right direction for January here as we kick off 2025. So let's see how the rest of the week goes, and hopefully that upward trend is happening. Whoa, we have a mega launch Tuesday, which is a throwback to the way things were a few months ago when Tuesdays were huge launch days. And here on the first Tuesday of the year, we get 18 new projects launched in the Kickstarter Comics category, and most of them are awesome, which is also a change from the way things have been. So we've got a genre-diverse set of drops that happened, and I'm going to separate the best from the rest for you. And that means today's update is going to be long. So strap in and let's talk about some really cool comics. But let's start with the ones I can't endorse. There's a pair of pinup books that are not comics, one called Heroines After Sunset, Issue 1, and one called Thrill Trigger Uncensored. We also have a pair of empty campaigns guaranteed to not result in any actual comics at all. One's a graphic novel project called Pachacuti, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, and another one called Predation. And there's a couple of novice projects from developing creators that aren't quite there yet. Brook City, an action comedy, and Order of Dracula 1 through 5, The Death of Dracula horror. That's one of the Make 100 projects for January. And there's an otherwise impressive corporate project that's just overpriced beyond reason. That's Robert Venditti and David Latham's Hank Howard Pizza Detective. That's from Bad Idea. And Bad Idea has a long history of ridiculously overpriced Kickstarter projects. And in fact, I can remember one that they had to restart because the pricing was so out of proportion to what was being offered. Now let's start the long list of comics I like. Starting in the action-adventure genre with Charlie McKelvey's American Yakuza, a not-safe-for-work murder mystery in Japan. This is for Acts 1 through 3. The byline for this one is, join us on a violent, sexy trip to Japan to solve a murder. The action intensifies and the mystery multiplies as we dive deeper. So the lowdown on American Yakuza is their initial funding goal is $3,500 with an end date of January 31st. Estimated delivery in February or March. This is a 20-page project. The lowest digital tier price is $5. The lowest print tier price is $15. This one has great cover art and design, terrific interior art, color, and composition, and it's a story-first approach to mature comics. I backed it. Looks really great, and I suggest you back it too. Next up, from Alan Liska, a fellow Substacker, is The Press Guardian and Clock, Classic Pulp Heroes Return. Byline is, together for the first time, two iconic pulp heroes join forces to battle Nazis. If you love Golden Age comics, this is for you. Also, a Make 100 project for Kickstarter. Initial funding goal of $500, end date of January 25th, estimated delivery in February. These projects are turning around really quickly, and that's good news for backers. It's a 32-page comic. Lowest digital tier price is $5. Lowest print tier price is $10. Those are extremely reasonable in the current Kickstarter economy. Has really dynamic interior art, color, and composition, and features some fun retro-style pulp action. Really check this one out. It's a lot different than the other superhero and action comics out there right now. In the comedy genre, we've got The Bubblegum Shoes, an all-ages comedy manga by Chris Hill, which describes its story as Tabitha and Emily, a pair of hard-boiled middle school detectives, must get to the bottom of a case of missing cookies. So this is kind of an all-ages book. Minimum funding goal of $3,500. This project ends on February 13th with an estimated delivery of February or March. That's a super quick turnaround. Doesn't really say how many pages are in the book, which I went on kind of a diatribe about that on the last session. Lowest digital tier price of $5. Lowest print tier price of $15. This is a manga-inspired book, so it's got grayscale interior art and composition, but it looks great. Attractive cover art and design. And this is a refreshingly different story take compared with most of what I see from the manga options on Kickstarter. Also, we've got It's Fun to Kill People, number 1 and 2, which it bills itself as a dark comedy. This one's by Anthony D. Stokes. Follow the hijinks of a poorly adjusted kid who has a pair of serial killers as parents. So a little dark humor. Initial funding goal of $3,000 with an end date of January 24th. Estimated delivery of the comic in April or May. It's a 24-page book. Minimum digital tier price of $5. Lowest print tier price is $13. The art in this one, really awesome. Very stylized. Top tier cover art and design. And it's good to see some dark humor in a comic in the Kickstarter comics category. Not seeing a lot of this type of book. I'm excited to take a look at it. Then we get to horror. It's one called Frankie, Boy Monster number 4 by Eli Schwab. An all-new Frankie Boy Monster adventure written by Morgan Heron with amazing art by Jorge Pena. This one's got super stylized art. It's got an initial funding goal of $4,500 with an end date of February 6th. Estimated delivery in March. So getting consistently fast turnaround, or at least projected turnaround for the books that were launched on the 8th. This one also doesn't tell you how many pages are in the book, but the lowest digital price is $5. Lowest print tier price is $12. So those are very reasonable, even if you don't know how many pages you're getting. The cover art and design, like I said, very cool, very bombastic, stylized, captivating interior art, color, and composition. And they do have discounted catch-up rewards tiers, which you can get issues 1 through 3. And it's just a fun take on the monster genre. Also in the horror camp is Ice and Bone numbers 1 and 2. A samurai action horror. This is part of the Make 100 projects for Kickstarter January. This is from Aaron Robluski. This story is set in 16th century Japan where anarchy reigns. Revenge took Nakaki. Beyond blood and fire, now there is only ice and bone. Initial funding goal of $3,500 on Ice and Bone with an end date of February 6th. Estimated delivery September 25. This is a 28-page comic. The lowest digital tier price of $6. Lowest print tier price of $15. Super edgy cover art. I really like it. Deceptively simple, badass interior art, color, and composition. I mean, this book looks terrific. There are catch-up rewards tiers for previous issues, and it's just an awesome genre mashup done in high style. This is a book from a fellow Substacker, and if you like your horror mashed up with martial arts and swordplay, this is the book for you. Sticking with horror, we've got The Passenger of U-977. This is a horror graphic novel, also part of the Make 100 initiative by Joseph Oliveira. The byline on this one is: a mysterious passenger aboard U-977 plunges its crew into terror on a 66-day submerged journey. World War II ends, but their nightmare begins. This one has an initial funding goal of $1,872. Campaign ends on January 22nd with estimated delivery in April. It's a 108-page graphic novel, so this is a beefy book with a lowest digital tier price of $10, which is super cheap for a book that big. Lowest print tier price is $20, also good. Really perfect cover art and design. I'm really impressed with the art on this project. So impressed that I backed it. The art inside is very watercolor inspired. Really captivating to look at. This one ships from the UK and is a mature story based on real events. Check it out. And I did have a comic I like pop out of the not safe for work genre. This one is Mademoiselle de Sade, number 3, The Terror, from Tuca El Boutre. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Describes itself as an erotic journey through 1794 Paris, blood, corsets, big wigs, and the guillotine. This is the printed edition. $724 initial funding goal. This one ends on Kickstarter on January 14th, estimated delivery in April. This one also doesn't tell you how many pages you're getting, but it has a lowest digital tier price of $6, a lowest print tier price of $19, and it just really looks amazing. The cover art and design are done in high style. The interior art, color, and composition are to me, Vertigo inspired, classic Vertigo inspired. They look so good. This one ships from Italy. And this is a good example of erotica that's endemic to a real narrative instead of just trying to sell nude covers. Now we get to the sci-fi genre, starting off with Curtis Clowe's A Place Where Time Doesn't Exist #1, which bills itself as a sci-fi adventure in which humanity is going extinct. A small crew must find the cure on a strange alien planet at any cost. Curtis makes great comics. This one has an initial funding goal of $3,000, ends on January 31st, so pretty quick turnaround of about 3 weeks. Estimated delivery in June or July. Also doesn't tell you how many pages you're getting, but the lowest digital tier price is $7, the lowest print tier price is $13. Gorgeous cover art, stylized and dynamic interior art with a wild purple-dominated color palette. Really freaky looking book, and I say that in the best way. And I just love seeing weird sci-fi back on Kickstarter. Excited to take a look at this book when it's done. Next up in sci-fi, The Final Frontier #1, A Game of Death by EPHK, whoever that is. The unbelievable yet true first official adventure of the infamous starship USS Pequod and his valiant crew. So this one's sort of a mature parody of the sci-fi genre, particularly the Star Trek side of the sci-fi genre. Has an initial funding goal of $13,456, which is pretty ambitious. Has an end date of February 6th with estimated delivery in October, so that's going to be a long turnaround. Not outrageous, but pretty long. It's a 48-page book. Does not offer a digital option. The lowest print tier price is $25. Really awesome retro cover art and design. Stylized, fully painted, by the way, interior art, color, and composition. Ships from France. And again, it's just, I love seeing weird sci-fi. It's not something that shows up on Kickstarter very often. This one's a sexy parody of weird sci-fi, but nonetheless, I'm happy to see it. And finally, we get to the superhero genre with Jonathan Hedrick's Capable 1-7, the final issue. This is also part of the Make 100 initiative. So the new content here is for issue 7, but you can get the whole series as part of this Kickstarter. Describes itself as the series finale of Jonathan Hedrick's bold superhero story that asks, what if people gain powers opposite of their disabilities? Such a cool take on the superhero genre. Something totally different than what you're used to. Has an initial funding goal of $517. Ends on February 6th with an estimated delivery in February. So that's as fast a turnaround as you can get. 60-page book, so that's a beefy comic. Lowest digital tier price is $6. Lowest print tier price is $11. I love the cover art and design. Tells you exactly what you're going to get inside the book, and has detailed dynamic art, color, and composition inside the book. This is a much-needed, different take on superheroes that I think you're going to find really fascinating. So, this is a dramatic switch from what we've been seeing with a bunch of campaigns that are difficult to endorse because they're honestly not great or just aren't developed well enough yet. But on the 8th, we got so many great comics from all kinds of genres to choose from. And it's just really good to see that we're kicking off 2025 with this kind of outlay of talent and quality in the Kickstarter comics category. Yep, there were 3 not safe for work drops in the Kickstarter comics category on Wednesday, and every one of them gets the comic I like tag. Seriously. You'll see why in a few minutes, but first, let's take a cursory glimpse at the 2 AI-generated campaigns that launched yesterday. These feature the usual hallmarks of empty phishing. I mean, I guess that's what they're doing. These phishing projects. They're launched by first-time creators, allegedly, who have never backed another campaign. Any artwork, if there's even any shown, is obviously AI-generated, as is the formulated, listless wall of text that comes with it. These projects are Mamluk, that's Mamluk, The Untold Legacy of Slave Soldiers, and another one called Sunless. By the way, the backer community is definitely aware of these scam campaigns. They usually have no pledges. Neither of these do. So these continued incursions onto the platform are just baffling. What are they trying to accomplish? There were also a couple of sci-fi offerings that were held back a little by the artwork, but they may suit your taste when they didn't suit mine. So there's one called Bounty that bills itself repeatedly as Star Wars meets The Boys, which again isn't a selling point for me, but it might be for you. I'm not a big fan of The Boys, so take a look. And the coloring on the other one called the Audacity graphic novel, it honestly exacerbated a headache that greeted me when I woke up that morning. I mean, these colors are loud, very saturated. That coupled with the absence of a cover image prevented more of a recommendation from me. Now, I know I bitch and moan a lot about the sorry state of not safe for work comics on Kickstarter. There are too many. They don't care about story or sequential art. They're just chasing the money. And I stand by all these assertions. However, Serendipity brought us 3 amazing not safe for work launches yesterday, each of which absolutely brings fun and interesting stories to the table, along with some high-quality sequential art. These are the kind of comics that can be appreciated by grown folks seeking out fun stories that happen to be mature in nature and include in-context, subject-relevant nudity and sexual situations, and so appeal to an audience beyond the titty cover collectors. They do deserve your attention. First up, there's Naked Kaiju Woman, which is a not safe for work, naked kaiju action-filled comic, if you can imagine, by Adriano Originolo. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Adriano. This is a new 5-part series with nothing to hide. 32 pages of full-color naked kaiju mayhem, silly, not safe for work fun with heart. This is part of the Make 100 initiative from Kickstarter for January. Naked Kaiju Woman has an initial funding goal of $1,043 with an end date of January 31st and estimated delivery in March or April of 2025. It's 32 pages with a lowest digital tier price of $5, lowest print tier price of $16. This cover art and design, they are hilarious and stylish. They look great. There's several different covers. All of them are both funny and sexy at the same time. Shows solid interior art, color, and composition. That's the sequencing, the figure work. Super fun. Very good stuff. Just a cool idea to take basically the Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, that old 50s era movie, address the clothing what if question that we've all wondered about regarding the 50-Foot Woman, and just have her beat down some kaiju. This one ships from Canada. Highly recommend it. The second of those not safe for work comics I mentioned is Trip Girls #1, which calls itself a steamy streamer's tale by Anthony Norris. It's a 36-page packed spicy comedy about 2 streamer girls, Michelle and Christy, participating in a popular online competition game. The initial funding goal for Trip Girls is $1,200 with an end date of February 7th, estimated delivery of March or April of 2025. It's 36 pages, as was mentioned earlier. Lowest digital tier price is $8. Lowest print tier price is $14. That's good value for 36 pages. You're usually paying that for 24 pages on Kickstarter. The cover art and design are equal parts funny and sexy. The interior art, color, and composition are stylized and fun. And this is story-first mature comics with sexy content and a sense of humor. It's really a great-looking book. Lots of preview art. And then from the ubiquitous Pat Shan comes Cheeky Comics Annual 2025. This is 3 separate not safe for work stories from Cheeky Comics. From the team that brought you Nippy, an exotic dancer has a wild night, an exhibitionist couple explores, and a vampire meets her match. This one has an initial funding goal of $6,900 with an end date of January 24th. Estimated delivery in July. It's a 32-page comic with a lowest digital tier price of $7, the lowest print tier price of $16. I mean, this book boasts the usual stellar cover art and design from Pat Shan and his group. Great interior art, color, and composition. Just a gorgeous book to look at. And these guys, led by Pat, have set the gold standard for story-driven, not safe for work comics in the crowdfunding arena. I also want to give Pat Shannon and his crew credit for including a project progress tracker on the Kickstarter campaign page. I mean, maybe it's been there before and I just missed it, but it's a link to a spreadsheet that details production and shipping progress for each of their many campaigns. While I still have concerns about the space super creators occupy within the search function and within the disposable income of the backer community, this kind of transparency is admirable and should be duplicated by other creators with multiple outstanding crowdfunding campaigns. That's what I got to say about that. So check out these Not Safe for Work campaigns that are doing it right, that are telling stories, that are showing amazing art, that are at the forefront of what we want comics on Kickstarter to be. Launch volume continues to climb in the Kickstarter comics category, with 12 new drops between Thursday and Friday, up now more than 40 compared with the prior week. Sadly, the heavy momentum of quality projects that began early this week did not extend through to the weekend. First up, we have 3 new campaigns from first-time creators who've never backed another Kickstarter. Needless to say, these campaigns lack any evidence that the creators understand how to conceptualize, produce, and manufacture a comic. These people need to be directed to creative resources, not thrown into the active campaign fray. Between this trio, there are 0 backers and 0 funds raised. These projects include Breaking Daisy's Chain, Catalyst of the Divine, and Death Valley Ghouls. You'll find links to those projects in the show notes. In the Not Safe for Work arena, we're back to seeing mostly projects that are just selling nude cover art, with no priority placed on story or sequential art, the requisite attributes of a comic. One of these, called The Peak of Lust, includes on its page actual animated GIFs depicting intercourse. That is a dubious first, even for Kickstarter. Even Black Bart, is that what we want next door to our actual comic campaigns? Yet, it's there, approved by Kickstarter Trust and Safety, and bringing down the property value for everybody. Oh, and this project is another by a first-time creator with no back projects to his credit, no finished interior art samples to show, and not a single backer. Also in the Not Safe for Work story void, Alien Pterodactyls number 2, Ambition and Betrayal, includes a 1-sentence story synopsis and a grand total of 2 mostly censored interior page samples. There's another called Night's Fall Eldritch, Chapter 1, with no sequential art samples at all. There's another one called Ace, A-S-E, The Blood Huntress number 2, with no story info at all, just covers. And then there's the very popular Zombie Tramp, Birth of the Cruel Part 1, that includes 2 sentences about story and 7 total pages of interior art samples, and of course, a Project We Love selection for this powerhouse moneymaker of a porn cover mill. The Earthly Adventures of Devil Grace shares a lot of story information and a ton of sample interior art pages, but they reveal story and execution I can't rightfully recommend. Take a look, as it might be your cup of tea, but it's not mine. Scarlet Into the Abyss, a graphic novel. It's selected as a Kickstarter project we love, but it showcases super saturated colors and beginner-level lettering I can't endorse. Again, you may like this one better than me, so you should glance at it. This most recent bunch of comics Kickstarters isn't a total loss, though, as there are a couple of comics I definitely like, starting with Street Knights Issue 1, a gritty new take on Super Sentai, by Gabriel Villalobos. This is Power Rangers meets New Jack City and Digimon when 5 teens become ancient warriors to protect their city from an intergalactic evil. I really love the concept of twisting the Super Sentai tropes into more street-level relatable forms. The rewards for this one get pretty expensive for a project that reveals no page count, but I still think the quality of the concept and the execution is worth looking at. It has an initial funding goal of $10,000 with an end date of February 8th. Estimated delivery in December of 2025. That is a long turnaround for a Kickstarter project. Still love the project. I'm still going to endorse it, but that's a long wait of 11 months from the time that you pledge. As I mentioned, it doesn't specify the number of pages in the book. The lowest digital tier price is $20. I hope it's a lot of pages for that amount. The lowest print tier price is $40, also on the high side. But the cover art and design are technically superior for this book. I mean, it looks primo. And the interior art, color, and composition are dynamic and stylized. It's just hard for me to turn this one down, as good as it looks and as cool of a concept as it is. So there are some risks involved, so caveat emptor. The other comic I love for this group is El Chupacabra, Rebirth number 2 Premium Edition by Veronica Jimenez. This is Mexican horror, meet the real villain behind this legendary story. All right, I admit I have a soft spot for cryptids, and this looks like a cool new take on the El Chupacabra in comic form, so it definitely gets a recommendation for me. The initial funding goal is $26.52 with an end date of February 9th, estimated delivery in March, so that's a much better turnaround than the Super Sentai book. It actually tells us the number of pages at 24, does not offer a digital reward. The lowest print tier price is $11. Really terrific cover art and design, great interior art, color, and composition. Looks like a fun story. Always down for a Chupacabra story, so check this one out. Hopefully tomorrow yields better results. Saturday saw an end to the busy Kickstarter Comics launch days that added nearly 50% more projects to the category overall. That's a big lift from the previous week when there were briefly fewer than 100 live comics campaigns. Of the 5 campaigns that dropped yesterday, were any worth your valuable time, attention, and money? Let's go through them with the advantage of a small set to consider. And we'll start with the worst. Winnie number 2, Face It Tigger, You Just Hit the Honey Pot. This is one of those projects that simply besmirches a newly public domain intellectual property simply for the sake of doing so. It's nothing more than a collection of covers featuring female characters in various stages of undress in their costumes that evoke Winnie the Pooh and friends. And, sexualizing children's characters is, at the very least, an exercise in bad judgment. Plus, there are just no comic skills at work here. The one interior page shown is poorly lettered and betrays no understanding of how panels work. Then we've got Horror Comic Book Tribute by Gore Noir Magazine, which, as it states, is a magazine paying tributes to comics, but not a comic. So we're not going to cover it here. Next up is The Hunt, a dark universe where the hunt is always on. This one was close to making the cut as a comic I like. It's got kick-ass covers and a dark fantasy setting, but the grayscale art treatment is so undifferentiated as to make the line art difficult to distinguish, and the lettering is so minuscule that it's illegible. There's also just not enough detail on what the story's about, but there's some promise here for future projects. And that leaves 2 projects that graduated to official recommendation status, starting with Madness and Monsters by Neil Roche, an epic set of myths, monsters, madness, war, betrayal, redemption, isolation, and forgiveness, all with a deeply psychological steer. This is an anthology of fantastical myths and legends in a hardback graphic novel. It's got gorgeous cover art and design, haunting art, color, and composition across a variety of styles. Its initial funding goal is $3,051 with an end date of February 10th, estimated delivery in April, and it's a beefy 132 pages with the lowest digital tier price of $7, which is dirt cheap for 132 pages, and the lowest print tier price of $37, which ironically is not dirt cheap for 132 pages. That's quite expensive, even for Kickstarter. This one ships from the UK, so check your shipping costs before pledging. And then we've got Volume 2 of Yuri manga, Her Kiss My Libido Twinkles, by a Japanese creator whose name I can't pronounce because it's in Japanese symbols, and I am not fluent. This is a romance comic, not a porn comic. It's got professional level warm manga style interior art, color, and composition, simply beautiful cover art and design, has an initial funding goal of $3,170 with an end date of February 9th, estimated delivery in May. It's a fat 164 pages with a very reasonable lowest digital tier price of $13, a lowest print tier price of $26, and it ships from Japan, so again, check your shipping costs before pledging. Way back in 2011, a local artist and friend, Nathan Smith, joined me on production of my second ever comic, a steampunk weird western series that eventually became Last Ride of the Four Horsemen. Fast forward nearly 14 years and more than 200 pages later, and the latest chapter, issue 2 of the concluding Tribulation cycle, dropped on Kickstarter yesterday. While we've almost reached the initial funding goal, there's a long way to go to actually cover production and printing costs, but Last Friday has great momentum, and I'm excited to see how the rest of the campaign goes. The art team of Marco Cantiana and colorist Alavan Ortiz seriously crushed it on this comic, and I can't wait to share the whole thing when the Kickstarter ends on January 26th. If I may be so bold, allow me this opportunity to ask for your support of my own self-published comic, whether by following the project, sharing the Kickstarter link with your own followers, or, of course, by making a pledge for some of the many rewards. I'll be forever grateful, and I'll absolutely reciprocate, just as I do every day here at the Comics Crowd. There were only 2 other comics launches on Sunday, including Captain Zabibi and the 7 Summoners #1, which looks like a nice all-ages pirate adventure with some cool stylized art and solid production values, but there's just no information on the story or the end product. But a comic I do like and can recommend is Sisters of Blood from Comics to Movies Publishing in Australia, the byline of Bound by Blood, Tasked with Vengeance. This is an action-adventure book with a cool, dynamic art style, awesome covers, and it ships from Australia. The initial funding goal is $3,065 US, with an end date of February 9th and estimated delivery in April. It's a nice fat comic at 48 pages with a lowest digital tier price of $7, lowest print tier price of $18. So go check this one out. Please check out Last Ride of the Four Horsemen. And I think we're in for a busy week of a lot of drops as we see January ramp up to pre-holiday levels in the Kickstarter comics category. So that was a bit of a wild week in Kickstarter comics. We had days with no drops worth your time or money, yet we had a day with a majority of launches that deserved your attention. The comics category is always a mixed bag, but I'm here with you in the Comics Crowd to sift those real comics, those great stories, that magnificent artwork all to the top, so you can browse the best and dispense with the rest. Happy hunting, everyone. To keep up with daily crowdfunding launches in the Kickstarter comics category, join me, comics writer and self-publisher Kevin Laporte, on Substack at thecomicscrowd.substack.com. Subscribe for free and enjoy routine analysis of every single comics project that drops on Kickstarter. Paid subscribers gain immediate access to audio editions of select posts, including the daily launch reviews.